Okay, so in this asteroid series, we're going to talk about Vesta. Okay, so if you haven't heard of Vesta before, this asteroid can be significant in understanding what we are willing to put ourselves into, what specifically we are willing to commit to, how we work, our work ethic, our ability to endure and to continue to really dive into something that's meaningful to us. And we're going to dive into what signs are associated with the Vesta and a little bit more. Obviously, we're going to go through the signs. We're going to briefly go through the houses at the end as well. So with Vesta, it is about what you're devoted to. What are you willing to do? Your work ethic, your level of intimacy in what you undertake. So there's a few taglines of what Vesta represents. And as I always say with asteroids, they are a little bit of flavor to the chart. Do you absolutely have to identify Vesta and Pallas and all of these asteroids in a chart to understand it? No, you don't have to, but it helps add that little dash, right? Those things that might make your chart different from someone else's can be the fact that that asteroid there helps you stay committed in some way to what it is that you're doing. So what we're going to do here is really dive into first, of course, with these asteroid series, I've been talking about the myth. Where did it come from? What are some key things to know? As I've said before, origins are really important. You know, a lot of times people will say things about astrology, and if we knew the origin, if we knew the symbolism of it, we would understand it in a more evolutionary way, in a more psychological way, in a more symbolic way, instead of using astrology just to, nitpick or have very surface level conversations about science. So that's what I intend and hope to do with my series and my channel, is to sometimes give an understanding of the origin of these signs, the origin of asteroids, the origin of certain thought process, and where did it come from. So Vesta is a Greek term. She was also known as Hestia to the Romans. There's a whole myth behind it. Again, it's very fascinating. All of the myths, all those types of origin stories, in my opinion, are very fascinating, no matter what culture they come from. But she was considered the first Olympian born of Cronus, also known as Saturn, time, and Rhea. And so what I think is very interesting about Cronus is Saturn is father time. And the interesting thing about Vesta, it's about service. It's about putting in that work. And because in the myth she was the first Olympian, anytime there was a new thing being started, she was called on, or there would be an altar made in her honor. The symbol of her is the hearth. It is that enduring flame, that fire, that thing that makes you keep going. So Vesta in our charts can indicate what we're just so attached to, what we're not willing to let go. And your sign is going to show what's that energy. Does not mean you are that sign. It simply means that's it's a little extra part of you that shows how you tend to certain things, your mindset. What is your work style? What is your work ethic? How do you feel in commitment? What are you willing to do? So she represents enduring flame, home, safety, sanctuary, right? We think of the hearth. We think of the fire, the fireplace, something that is burning in order to give you safety and comfort. Commitment is also a part of Vesta. What you are, you have a propensity to really drive towards your focus. Sexuality is also part of Vesta. We in isolation, and we'll talk about that. But there's a whole myth behind Vesta and her power and the goddess power, and how many of the goddesses, if you really read up on them, have been, some of them have been watered down. There's been a lot of washing away of what they were supposed to represent. But in general, she represents what we're willing to do. Okay, what are we willing in a way to kind of submit to in a way? What are we willing to give in and be vulnerable? In order to really put our all into something, we have to trust in it and be vulnerable in a way. So that's how she can be connected to things that we can view as different, sexuality, but commitment and sanctuary. But think about it holistically instead of thinking about it just from what that one word means. Now, what we also have to understand is she's linked to Virgo and Scorpio. Okay, now the whole concept behind it is the virgin goddess who refused to marry or belong to a man. That's actually the original myth that aligns with the sign of Virgo. So a lot of times we're like, oh, this is a virgin, this is what it is, but it's actually originally the idea, and this is said, you've seen this a lot in Demetra George's book, the book that also she has with Douglas Block, is she refused to marry. It was a woman who refused to marry or belong to a man. She wasn't just this maiden that couldn't find anyone. It was, in ancient theory, not wanting to be controlled, refusing to be controlled. Now again, I know we are in modern times, but in that time period, this would have been a way in which a woman was said to belong to her husband, quote unquote. Now, we also know that there are different goddess periods where women had more rights. So, no, the common thought that every society ever has always been patriarchal is not true. If you do your research, you know there are certain cultures that were not, and there were certain belief systems that actually worship the goddesses. So let's dive a little bit more into the myth, and then we're going to jump into the signs. Vesta. Okay, so if you've ever wondered about, so I do recommend this book for anyone who wants to know more about asteroids. It is so great the way that it is set up. It really helps you dive more into the myth itself and understand the many layers. If I had time, this video would be very, very long. What I like to do with this study that I'm doing with the asteroids is read up on it, understand it, tell you about the myth, but also make my own understanding of it. So when you see the next slides where I talk about the signs, that's from me. It's not from the book. So it means like I read up on it, but I didn't want to be too influenced by what the book said. So I actually read up on the myth, I read up on the information, and then when it came to the signs, Vesta and Virgo, Vesta and Aries, all that, I wrote my own definition for this video, and then I'm going to go back and read that definition, just because I don't want to just regurgitate someone else's information. But this is super, super, super important, and then we'll move on. Now, if you really are that more interested, and I have different people. I have people who will watch the whole video. I have people learning astrology, so they want me to break it down more. And we have some people who might just watch the video just to hear their Vesta sign, and that's fine. But I do like to make it holistic for those who are interested in the whole entire show. So this is what's interesting. You've noticed before that Virgo and Scorpio have the glyphs that look very similar. Right? And a lot of times what people, the myth, the idea, not a myth, it's what it is that at one point some people say, well, you know, Virgo and Scorpio used to be the same sign or something like that. They didn't used to be the same sign, but there is a serious connection between Virgo and Scorpio. And a lot of times, if you think about the sign, Virgo and Scorpio, they are similar in some ways. Now, both are quote unquote feminine signs. One is water, one is earth. Earth and water go well together. But there is a level of perception and depth. Now, one deals more with the earth quality. That's Virgo. Virgo has to examine the things that are physically in front of us and the facts and the things that we've been given, right? We look at something that's in reality. Virgo. With Scorpio, we go inward. We have to really decipher and pick apart things in order to make it something meaningful. Now, what you have to understand here is that Vesta, asteroids, as I've said in the other asteroid videos, have different connections to different signs, such as Pallas. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since the Pallas, and the Pallas is connected to Leo, Aquarius, and Libra. And so Vesta, I thought this was really fascinating that it talks about in the original zodiacal belt outlined by the Assyrian and Babylonian cultures, Scorpio was symbolized by a serpent and directly followed the sign Virgo. So actually, they're saying this idea of like it was Scorpio, it was Virgo, then Scorpio, right after the other. And it said what was called Libra was contained within the constellation of Scorpio and was designated as the Chile, the claws of the Scorpion. The Virgo and Scorpion glyphs were similar in design but contained subtle distinctions. In the Virgo glyph, the M of matter, mother, was turned inward, while the Scorpio M of matter, mother, was turned outward. Think about that. Right? Virgo, even though Virgo is analyzing the physical world, there's introspection there, right? Virgo is doing it. It has to be this internal process before Virgo can regurgitate it out. Whereas on the flip side, even though we can consider the fact that Scorpio is internally emotional, right? There's a connection to the emotions. At the end of the day, once Scorpio has decided what it wants to do, it is ruled by Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto. There's action. I'm taking something. Right? I'm taking something from the world, or I'm getting my power from the resources and things around us. as it taps into a different energy than its opposite sign, Taurus. So I thought it was very, very, very interesting that it also says that the ancient great mother goddess simultaneously manifests as both Virgo virgin and Scorpio consort. And it talks about how Libra, the sign of marriage, was placed between Virgo and Scorpio by Greek astronomers who decided to create an artificial duality in a woman's sexual identity. So yes, with Vesta, there is this idea of giving and this idea of working towards something and being devoted and to kind of succumb to something in a way, but at the same time, know what it is and your limitations of what you want, which I think is very interesting. Now, again, this isn't a debate of like, well, I'm a Libra. What does that mean about us? We still practice this, the West, me, those of us, Western modern astrology, tropical astrology. We already know it's Virgo, it's Libra, it's then Scorpio. This is not saying this changes anything for us right now, but this helps you understand the connection between Virgo and Scorpio and why Vesta, it taps into both signs. Now, here's what I thought about all of that to really sum it up. And I said, well, it's almost like, consider it as Virgo process is about being whole, pure, examining something to determine its use in order to become intimate with something and to dissolve completely into it. And what I meant by that is like, think about this. If Virgo energy is about the process, it is about the refinement of something. It is about, no, it's not ready yet. We need to make it good. We need to make it quality. We need to see it all the way through. Again, the symbolism of Virgo can be that kind of planting something, watching it grow. It can be Virgo is cultivating it though. You're looking at it and you're like, well, let me check it out today. And you're noticing all the small things in order to see what you have to keep fixing, what you have to keep doing. But once we get to Scorpio, with Libra energy in between, we know Libra is about that partnership. But now I'm going to connect with other people. Now that I've analyzed something, now I can be a little bit more free. I can use a little bit more of a calming, more diplomatic way. Let's talk about this together, Libra. And then with Scorpio, what do you get? You get the intensity now. Right? Once we go through the cycle, that's all the zodiac signs. Actually, we could really talk about how they all go together, how they all flow, whether they are, 2 signs apart, 3 signs apart, 5 signs apart, whatever. The thing about astrology is sometimes we can look at the linkage between them, the similarities, instead of focusing so much and arguing so much about the differences. So let's jump into the signs. So, before that, again, we have to remember it's also, we are talking about isolation, right? So Vesta is what you're going to pour into, but it also can mean sometimes when we're pouring ourselves into something so much, sometimes we do isolate ourselves. If we also look at the fact that, let's say we start with Virgo, we know in tarot, Virgo is the Hermit card, right? It's the Hermit card. And it's what, it's isolation. I'm going away because I need to figure this out, right? It's what you do in your own will. It's your service, your devotion, your level of commitment, right? That's what Vesta can represent. So you will see we blend the energies of what it means. But again, Vesta is not necessarily you. So it's not like your sun sign, it's not your moon sign, but it's a part of you that feels devoted to a cause, devoted to something. And I do give a few examples there. But again, what I also want to share with everyone before we move on is definitely with recommending books and things like that. I always tell people, read books, because you then get research and you then get to see things beyond the biased view of someone's post online, someone's even YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, right? Now, there's nothing wrong with having your own opinions, your own thoughts, because that's how theories are born, right? For every great theory, that person had to first come out with something that no one else was thinking about. But at the same time, I always tell people who are serious about the field of astrology, study. Sometimes it's great to talk to people, it's great to make videos, but sometimes you have to study from someone who's not biased, because yes, we're all biased in some way, especially when it comes to anything that is we practice, right? Astrologically, I'm pretty sure there's things I'm more biased on, even though I try to be objective. There are going to be certain practices in astrology I lean more towards than some other astrologers might, and vice versa. But that's why I say, like, definitely read books. Online is great, but we also need people who are vetted, who have researched this, who are not just putting things out. What I like about books is people don't put out books for attention. It's not like a post online. It's not like a person trying to get 1,000 likes. People put out books because they've done the work, right? They've done the work. And so even when a book gets attention, the author is not attention seeking. Most writers of books and most researchers are not attention seeking, right? That's not that type of field. So that's why I say reading and research is important. And obviously when you read something, you don't have to agree with everything. You don't. But that's why I think it's essential to do that if you are serious about astrology, you want to know a little bit more. So let's say what I came up with here. Okay. So Vesta in Aries. Well, you're devoted to yourself in the spirit of independence. You know, this is something that you wholeheartedly believe in, that you want. You know, you can struggle sometimes with this placement, finding ways to insert your courage into the service to others. Because if Vesta is about this type of service, Aries is a sign of self. So sometimes the person can at first struggle with trying to give, but also at the same time trying to find a way to prioritize the self. Now, what we have to understand is this is Vesta. It's not the sun. This could be an example of a person who is, let's say you have a woman who's like, you know, maybe she's a stay-at-home mom, but she's very, very independent when it comes to doing things on her own. She has a certain presence in the home. So even though she's not working outside of the home, she still is known. When her kids talk about her, she does this and she does that. You see what I'm saying? So whereas we could look at someone and assume something, but if we kind of pinpoint something a little bit more specific with Vesta, we're going to see like there's a small difference there. This person, the risk is no longer just about self. So the person has to learn how to be known, be seen, be not a risk taker, but with Aries energy, it's something that you're going to stand out for doing. It's going to be having a certain level of courage. You respond, this sign responds well to those that trust you. When you feel trusted and you invest in Aries, it's like you're able to channel that energy to do something that is significant, something that does differentiate you from other people because you have this kind of fervor. Remember, we're talking about Vesta is that fire that is burning within, that is pushing you to want to do something. Now, example here would be Martin Luther King had Vesta in Aries. So that's an example of like someone who had to find that within himself. Now, the thing is, remember, Aries as a sign tends to be very self-involved. Rise to the top very easily. Definitely has a entrepreneurial spirit of I want to do this. I'm going to risk take. But again, Vesta is not the sun. So I'm giving you the example of Martin Luther King for you to understand, like to see an example of what that could look like. Now, Vesta in Taurus. The Vesta and Taurus person, if we're thinking of it, is this person builds resources. You build resources for yourself and others, right? It's not about the Taurus sun need to be safe. It is you are somehow providing or giving a level of safety. This person feels a mission to provide tangibles. Remember, we're talking about earth, right? And a foundation. This is a person, like I know a few people with this placement, and it's like, no matter their sign, you see that they are given to other people. So it becomes different here. Vesta is about this level of service, of willingness. I'm willing to do this for you. And it's invested. You could be invested. They can be invested in their body as well through health and also sensuality. We know Taurus is that very physical sign that deals with our senses. So there could be another level to that. Because remember, we talked about Vesta is also our intimacy. Because remember, Vesta is what we're willing to give into. Okay, and that could be an endeavor. It could be work. Virgo. We could talk more about that intimacy. Scorpio. That's why I started this video talking about the two different signs. Effort helps others establish a foundation, needs to be valued to be vulnerable though. If someone has Vesta and Taurus and we're looking at their willingness to give in, they have to feel valued within a situation in order to really go that extra mile and show that devotion. I also think Vesta is important in work. You can see, maybe somebody has Vesta conjunct some signs in their chart and it really shows where they will do best when it comes to vocation. Vesta and Gemini. Grounded in the learning process. This is a person, the fire is about helping other people understand. This person might provide labor in teaching and informing. And it can be informal. So when we'll see something like a teacher, you could see placements in the 3rd or 9th house predominantly, right? Or maybe you have Gemini on the cusp of the 11th house, of the 10th house or something like that, right? You can see the teacher in men in that way, maybe. 3rd house placements, things like that. 9th house as well. But what we're not talking about the teacher. We're talking about Vesta. So this could be a person who's not necessarily a teacher, but maybe they are in their field or maybe in their household. They're the ones, I'm going to give an example. It could be like the person who, if somebody is, a second generation American, right? And their family came to live in America, and maybe they struggled or they had to learn English, but they know English because they were born here, and they translate things to their family. I've known people like that where they're like, yes, I translate this to my family because they don't speak English like I do, and they help in that way. So remember, Vesta is that help. No matter what sign it is, Vesta is showing this idea of service, what you're willing to give in, again, as I said before. So that's an example. I'm trying to give an example for you to understand the range of what it could look like. So you're devoted to teaching, even if you're not a teacher. You're devoted to embedding information. You're creating spaces for voice and thinking to be heard. So that's where Vesta can also live in someone's, the dynamic in which how you deal with other people. This also could be the person maybe in their personal life. Maybe, they're the person at the store and they're informing people when they buy stuff, like someone's buying something. Oh yeah, I bought that before too. Yeah, you might want to get that brand. Like a person who's really into that. Maybe a person who also has like Mercury conjunct Vesta or Mercury trine Vesta or something like that, can get lost in devotion to just thought. Right? Sometimes you can see like if they don't feel heard, they're not going to give in, right? So you're not going to see that willingness, that fervor to do something if the Vesta and Gemini person does not feel that they have the impact to have their words be listened to and heard and be able to use that in a way to help, right? An example of this is Quincy Jones. And so with Quincy Jones, what's interesting is like he was a mentor to a lot of artists. Okay, he produced music and he is behind a lot of artists and a lot of hit records. So Quincy Jones can be an example of that he used his service in order to help other people with their voice being heard through music. Vesta in Cancer. The Vesta and Cancer person is willing to center emotions in situations, and by willing, I mean there's a necessary need to give in a way that is reliant on their desire to allow these emotions to be seen through act. The service is based on feelings, right? It's ability to stay the course of following and allowing connections to be the root of their work, right? They're like, I feel very deeply in this. I really care about this. This is what I'm connected to. So Vesta in Cancer is more of a connectivity type of placement. You can see a person who's not very emotional, but then you look at the work that they do, or you look at the way they put work into helping their family out. You're just like, wow, this person is a mess, or they have all these issues in their life, but wow, when it comes to service and helping people that they care about, they have a certain routine, a way of giving in, right? But sometimes this emotions can get disrupted. So a person is less likely to really fulfill those obligations when they feel that someone does not really regard them. Someone is not sensitive or noticing their feelings. When they feel that their feelings are not taken into account or ignored, you could see that Vesta sign not be as interested or not as committed when it comes to following through with something. Let me give an example. It would be a person who gives back to their community simply because they have fond memories, right? It could be a person who, in all intents and purposes, we wouldn't think they would give back, but they do because they're like, wow, man, I grew up here. I really care about this place. And they do something in order to really show that connection that they have. Now, Vesta and Leo, we have, you work best through expressive modes, okay? And your service is going to be through the ability to express and through the ability also to be devoted. I would say also what I would really want to pinpoint here is we know that Leo energy is associated with children. And because associated with children, this person could be one that is really into children's causes, charity work, especially let's say you had someone Vesta and Vesta and Saris and Leo, right? You could see this person. So this I'm saying with asteroids. Again, asteroids add a layer. I've said before the recipe analogy. I can make a recipe, but I can sprinkle some things in there and it's going to taste a little bit different. So with Vesta being in Leo, we're seeing the service to children's causes. And that's why I'm saying, like, you might not see that immediately in someone's chart, but if you start to see Vesta having certain aspects to certain planets, and you start to see that Saris is that, you start to see certain themes, you might be able to lift up certain ideas of, is this asteroid significant in your chart? Destined to be seen and noticed for their ability to shine, though. But the person's not trying to. This is not the sun in Leo. This is not Leo rising. There is no mission to do it. This is what's within me. So you think about Virgo and Scorpio as the signs that are associated with Vesta. That's within you. That Virgo person is analyzing. That's all their mind. That Scorpio energy is internalizing everything. That's within. So that's what you understand about Vesta. It's within. It's not about external. So even when you accidentally externally do something to help other people, the Vesta is not about trying to get the attention, right? And devotion and attachment increases with acknowledgement. The Vesta and Leo person, though, needs more so probably than some other Vestas to be noticed for what they do. Because even Aries energy, it's like, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it, right? I don't need a crowd, but if you want to come around me, go ahead. Leo energy does need more of that, that acknowledgement and that kind of cheering on. Yes, you did this. This is great. This looks good. An example, this is Amelia Earhart. And I believe her Vesta in Leo was in the 5th house, to be honest. I would have to go back and look. But Vesta in Leo, she wasn't trying to be, it wasn't like she was trying to get attention. As the first female, aviator, she's known for what she did because of her service to showing what women are capable of, right? At a time where there weren't, this wasn't a common occurrence, at the time. And so that's an example here. When we talk about Vesta, we're not talking about you're consciously trying to show, look, because if we're talking about service, we're not trying to get attention. Even when you look at Scorpio energy, it's not trying to get attention. Okay, there's nothing wrong with the signs that get more attention because there's more on the outside that we actually see. So there is a little bit more transparency when we deal with certain fire signs. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that there's a difference there. Now, Vesta and Virgo. So your responsibility is to work on something specific and specialized. So this is not just, a Virgo person might really be into analyzing. A Virgo person might really be into really trying to inspect something and fine tune it and improve it and giving, Virgo is a sign of service. I think a lot of people forget that when they're complaining about Virgo. It's like Virgo is associated with hospitality and helping, and it helps in a very practical way. But Vesta, it fine tunes it. It's less about the analysis of Virgo and more about the service and labor that the person gives. So this person can typically, since Vesta is so connected to Virgo, does have something to do with working in some service capacity, charity. In some way you feel this fervor, this deep within, fire within to do something to help others. The ability to provide or offer us something due to your efforts. They can shun intimacy that appears to have a certain quality. So this is where you can get, again, we're talking about Vesta is also what we are willing to get into. And if we're looking at these two sides, a part of the Vesta is the myth and the idea behind also being able to give in an intimate way and feeling safe doing that. And so can shun intimacy that appears to have a certain quality. What I mean by that is if something isn't to the liking that they wanted to, they can say, no, I'm not doing that. Yeah, you can have a person who's really helpful, but they're like, I don't like, that doesn't make me feel comfortable because this way is going to make this a little bit better. Even when we're talking about this level of intimacy here, Vesta and Virgo, depending on also the other placements in the chart, you could see that, right? It's the person who might overwork can also be a Vesta and Virgo energy. Could be the person who overworks themselves and kind of misses out or does not prioritize intimacy because there's this, when you work at something physical, like when you're at work, when you have a job, when you're in a career, it is easier sometimes to do certain things because you know what to do, right? If you're going to work and you have to work with computer systems, you know what to do. If you're going to work and your job is to manage a certain department, you know what to do. But when it comes to other people and intimacy, we can't control other people. So sometimes it can be more difficult for a Vesta and Virgo person because now they have to deal with people in a way that is different than how we deal with tasks. Now, Vesta and Libra gives the gift of obligation to work in partnerships and within others. There's always this connection in some way in terms of, I want to partner with you. You feel a duty to involve others in your work and to partner, right? It's always about, yes, we're going to do this thing, or we're going to be really, charitable, or we're going to help. I'm going to really drive this project, but you involve other people for the ride. I know this person has helped me the whole time. I'm going to, like a Vesta and Libra person might be that person that gets an award on the stage and they thank this person from like 12 years ago. It has a lot to perform though within a union, because we have to understand that Libra's priority is harmony. I don't want conflict. I don't want drama. It's harmony. And we think of Vesta, which is this kind of servitude. And I don't like the word servitude, but it is this kind of service. It is this kind of, I'm giving in because I believe that there's something I'm going to get out of this, right? I'm going to refine something, make it bit better, or I'm going to create something that's going to, something I can attach myself to. So it has to perform a lot. So sometimes Vesta and Libra as a sign, it has to watch out as well of like working so hard on things that always rely on other people, especially when we're thinking about any type of intimate relationship where now it's overdrive to the relationship. And especially if you have this Vesta sign in any way is it compromises any other placement, meaning a person has Vesta square, Venus square Vesta. Wow. So now there is an issue now with relationships, right? There is something that this person has to unpack because they're going to be so willing to give and work within. But again, I think the positive of this could be that you see maybe in a work environment, this person they're likely to work with other people well. This is where you can get a person who's not a Libra, but they're able to do that in a very effective way. Now, Vesta and Scorpio dives deep. The gift that Vesta and Scorpio gives us is the ability to embed itself within the obligations. I said I was going to do this. This is a part of me. As Virgo, I'm going to do this. You're going to see me doing this. It's the earth energy. With Scorpio, it's internal. And it's internal in order to, now, again, the thing with Scorpio is there's an internal process in order to eventually take action, right? We have to, and the flip side of Mars ruling Aries, where Aries is going to show us right off the bat, Scorpio takes a little bit more time to really, allow itself to sit within its own feelings in order to really figure out and come to a defining conclusion. Because what you'll have is with Mars and Pluto ruling, Pluto's influence on Scorpio it's a little bit more secretive. Not going to show you right off the bat. It has to really understand things first. So you can go through extremes though. Scorpio can go through extremes when it comes to that. So going any level to get to something, becoming a little obsessed. I have to get this done. I said I was going to do this. I'm going to do it. Right? So I know this because I definitely have, I have Vesta and Scorpio. And when it comes to getting something done, it is like an obsession. It is like, I have to get this done. I said I was going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to, and obviously Vesta and, obviously Scorpio and Virgo sextile each other. So there is a harmony already with those placements, an opportunity, I would say. All right. And so you can go through the extremes when you care about something because Vesta and Scorpio, it's now a part of you. And it's a part of you and it's a part of your inner working to do something at the level of, I have to consume this project. I said I was going to do it. So now I'm going to do it. So it can be like a little bit of an obsessive quality with Vesta and Scorpio in that regard. And so it's everything's intense, even when we're talking about the sexual part of Vesta, for some people, there is a level, again, it depends on what else is in the chart, but there can be a level of intensity, what energy is happening there. And the work is intricate. The work is very, very intricate with Vesta and Scorpio because it's a part of you, and what's interesting, Vesta for me, I have, Vesta, let me see, remember. I already know it's in my third house, but I don't know if I don't remember what the degree is. So I have Pluto, South Node, and Saturn in my house and in my third house. And actually, interestingly enough, Vesta is literally conjunct my South Node, 12th degree and 13. So there's some past life. I already know from that my South Node, the past life situation, but it's interesting that Vesta shows up there. Because it can, all that energy in my third house all connects to that. So that's a way what's interesting if you want to look at your chart and see what is Vesta near and what is that telling you. Because me, it's in my third house, so it's about information. I like to go deep. I like to really, I'm obsessed with information. I'm obsessed with learning something. If I find something out, I will find out 30 other things about it, right? And I keep going and going and going. So that's a layer there. Now, Vesta in Sagittarius, you're willing to embed the truth in the work that you do. If well aspected, you like integrity, right? You're a person of integrity. You're a person of morals. You must find it necessary to be optimistic in your approach because in the work that you do, you feel a layer of wanting to give to other people in a way that helps lighten up everything in terms of giving people an awareness. I want to open up your eyes to what is possible. Vesta in Sagittarius gives that type of energy. And you put forth effort in intimate connections that feel honest and have the ability to grow. So we talk about the intimacy part of Vesta. This person is going to give in once they feel there's a layer of honesty there. If they feel that something is off, they're not going to put the work in. You can have a person. So again, Vesta, again, we can look at it like, well, what if there's a person that's in a relationship and they didn't put in work with this person, but they're putting in work with that person, and you look like, wait, I was with them. Why are they treating this person better? Well, there can be many reasons why, but it also could be maybe you weren't honest with them. You held back. They wanted transparency. And now they're willing to go the extra mile with this person because they feel cared about. Or they feel like, to them, wow, I'm willing to go the extra mile. I'm willing to invest in you. I'm willing to really hold it down with you because you are honest with me. And now I'm going to put in all this work in this relationship because I feel that there's a layer of truth. Let me give you another example. A doctor. Let's say this person's a doctor. They have no significant Sagittarius energy, but they're very ethical and shares knowledge with their patients. And I'm not saying that that's an anomaly. I'm hoping that most doctors will be able to do that. But that would be an example. Because maybe this doctor has another doctor that's different. Maybe they do this. They have the same exact position and title, but one has more of this desire to like, no, my gift to you, my service is not just being a doctor, but I want to share with you what you need to know. I'm not just going to tell you to take this medicine. I'm also going to inform you and give you this wisdom of certain parts of your body, or I'm going to help explain something to you because you have a right to know. That's just an example that I made up. So Vesta in Capricorn. So Vesta in Capricorn may not follow rules or procedures in other areas of life. Like, this is a person that doesn't, but does when it comes to the way in which to do things that require work or service. This is where I say, like, an asteroid gives a little dash, a little difference, a little, something that we can now see the specifics in how someone could be different, right? We can look at a chart and be like, oh, I have the same placement as my mom or my dad or whoever, but we go deeper, we start to see actually, no, you have a similar chart, but there's some differences here. And Vesta, again, if we're talking about work, if we're talking about intimacy, right, we're talking about what we give into, what we are willing to work towards to really embed ourselves deep. Vesta can be helpful in seeing that. Maybe you're a person who's like, I don't know what I want to do with my job, my work. I don't know what I want to do yet. Look at Vesta. Vesta might help. It's going to see what you're willing to commit to. So this is why I like to give this example, because you can have a person who's not traditional at all, but when like their lifestyle is very alternative, or the way they live their life, the way they look, everything they do is different. But when it comes to having to follow something a certain way, they do really well. You can be like, this person just seems so sporadic in life. They turn around and they're like, yeah, I just bought my house. You're like, I didn't even know you were going through the process. You seem so you seem so all over the place. But when it came time to do something they cared about, that they felt could be a bigger goal, when it comes to something that matters, sometimes you can see a Vesta and Capricorn person really rise to the occasion. They're willing to uphold tradition sometimes as well. This person's willing to say like, yeah, we have to do it like that. That's the right way to do things. Getting too deep or devoted requires a level of respect. So when we talk about the intimacy layer of Vesta in the chart, it requires respect and honor. This is not necessarily, in terms of, even if, especially when we look at certain aspects to the person's chart, you wouldn't want it's not someone that's going to just have a lot of flings, perhaps, especially if Vesta is in a certain house. If Vesta's in the second house or something like that, or Vesta's in the sixth house, or Vesta's in Capricorn's in the seventh house. This person is like, no, I need to feel like I'm respected before I have relationships with you, or I engage in intimacy with anyone, because I uphold myself very high, or something of that nature. Now, what I also want to caution is, if Vesta is compromised, I don't think that's the right word, but I like saying it. If a sign is compromised, right, or what they'll usually say in astrology, if something is, it doesn't match up, if something is square, if something is in opposition, if something is in detriment, like maybe there's an aspect that's already in detriment. There's a placement that's already in detriment, and then we notice it squares Vesta. Okay, it can mean an extreme reaction or an aversion to this energy in the first place. So I do want to caution that when we look at any placement by itself, we are talking about it by itself. And if we start getting really deep and like interpret this and that, that's a reading, right? If we're like throwing 50 different placements out, that is reading territory, right? Because in order to really understand anything, we would have to look at the whole chart. Like we would have to really analyze this. Well, does this square anything? Does this trine anything? Where's the chart? What degree? Like it's a lot of different things that we would have to do for thoroughly looking at it. So the purpose of this video is very general. You can feel free to drop your experiences, but it's not. To go deeper, we have to actually, be a part of. We actually have to be doing something regarding a reading in order to go that deep of what this would mean for you, especially for asteroids. I would need to see the whole chart. Because there's certain things that are a lot easier. With the asteroids, it gets way more dicey, and you have to really interpret it and analyze it to see the importance, or otherwise it's really not important, right? It's very easy to look at an asteroid and say, well, that's not that important, but then once you understand the theme of the chart and the actual planets, then you can see where it fits in. I always say with asteroids, you have to understand the dynamics of the planets first. You have to understand the chart theme with the planets before you start playing with asteroids. Now, to give an example, the person in that fraternity or sorority who is the party animal but is into upholding the initiations of the organization. So maybe this person is like, you look at them, you're like, oh yeah, that's a fun person, and they maybe they're flunking all their classes, but they are the one who upholds how you get inducted into the organization, or they enjoy that process of continuing tradition, would be that type of individual. Vesta in Aquarius doesn't mind shaking things up in order to provide service. If something is going to help something, if something is going to give back or give in, they're willing to be committed to something that they feel like is giving what people need. Think about Aquarius energy, which is more like that unorthodox, I'm going to do things in a different way. And this is not the rebellious energy. Remember, we're talking about Vesta here. This is, I'm doing this because this is the right way to do it. I know somebody invested in Aquarius, and they're not a rebel. They don't do stuff just to do it. But when it comes to helping people, they are willing to go around the rules, or they're willing to, I won't say go around the rules, they're willing to find alternate ways of handling a situation in order to get to a specific desired outcome. And so you'll see this person also needs, you give in and devote yourself to situations that show promise of freedom of thought and that trust your mindset. So the Vesta and Aquarius person gives to things that allow them freedom of, and that allow their thoughts and what they believe to be trusted and allowed, not really wanting to be restricted. So that's where you can see a person who, you're trying to understand a person's job situation. You're trying to understand a person. It's like, well, the Vesta and Aquarius, they don't necessarily want to be somewhere where no one listens to them. They're not willing to give in. They didn't like that job. That job didn't give them freedom. That job didn't trust them. That job didn't let them, or even in relationships, intimate relationships, right? If they don't feel that they're appreciated for being an individual, for being unique, they're mad like, I'm not putting as much effort into this relationship or this intimate. By relationship, Vesta, again, we talk about the Scorpio energy. This is about the intimacy type of relationship. Whether we are talking about intimacy, sexual relationship, things like that, we're not talking about just flings, right? So we're talking about the commitment aspect that is seen through Scorpio energy. We're not talking about the person right now, we're talking about the energy. So I just want to be clear on that. Vesta is not a relationship asteroid, but it's talking about your level of willingness to give into something and to put in that effort. And we see that through the earth lens of Virgo of, I'm going to look at this and I'm going to create this and I'm going to do this task and I'm going to really check this off and I'm going to do everything in order to make this as complete as possible. And Scorpio of, let me mold this, let me create an attachment to this. See the similar, see that it's similar, it's different, but it's similar. An example here, Eleanor Roosevelt. So she had Vesta in Aquarius, and I was just Googling some things about her, and I saw that she organized women's only events at a White House, which helped more women be hired as reporters. And I thought that was very interesting because I was like, oh, that's a perfect example of using Vesta in a way to help other people, right? It wasn't about, being seen or trying to get popularity or doing it just to do it. Yeah, it was on mentalfloss.com. Yep, that's the article. It was on mentalfloss.com. And it was like 11 interesting facts about Eleanor Roosevelt. And this here shows you. Aquarius, you shake things up. You do things in a different way that ends up helping other people. All right. And again, it's not a consciousness. Vesta is not necessarily a consciousness. It's the fire that burns within. But it was a result of what she did that happened. Now, Vesta in Pisces. So with Vesta in Pisces, you may feel committed to work that is compassion and fosters healing. And you might not know why. It's just something that burns within you. It's the person that's like, I've always wanted to do this. And you're like, why do you want to do that? That doesn't even match your personality. But Vesta can sometimes influence a person to want to give back or give in ways that help foster the healing of others. And it's not a very self-serving mindset, you know. And Vesta here, it's less about the need to do something in order to just be, you know, at peace. You know, Pisces energy wants to be at peace. Leave me alone so I can do what I need to do when I feel like doing it, and then I'm going to do a really good job at it, right? Pisces can do a really good job when you leave them alone and let them just do what they need to do, because it has to be on their own terms sometimes in order to feel inspired to do it, in order to get that inspirational spark. But Vesta is not the sun, it's not the moon, and so therefore Vesta is not about that consciousness of it. It's that fire within of, I need to help, I need to heal, I need to do this, I need to give back to people. It could be the person, maybe it's not even a part of their job, but in their, maybe they are religious, and at church they donate money to other people, or they take people in, they take other people's kids, and if they're running on, you know, maybe there's someone having hard times, they're struggling, they're in between homes, and you know, this person is maybe, usually it's probably someone older, it doesn't have to be older, but like the person takes someone in, like, I'll take your kids in for a month, you get yourself back together, you know. That type of energy would probably be like a Vesta and Pisces type of thing. But sometimes Vesta and Pisces can become too invested in intimate encounters that feel a need to feel a connection. So we talk about the layer of giving in and looking at it from a Virgo perspective and looking from a Scorpio perspective. We then can sometimes get Vesta and Pisces that want so much that what happens is, like the other signs have these a little bit of isolation to them, right? The other signs are more like, nope, I didn't get what I wanted, I don't feel safe doing it, I'm not going to give in. Where this one, it can be a little bit different because we know this is mutable water. And Pisces has a very compassionate understanding. And it's very important to have compassion in the world. And that is one of the great things about Pisces energy. But at the same time, it can become a bit much when it comes to not listening to what you truly want and giving into situations, giving your all, but then you're not really getting it what you want in return. They're not really allowing you to feel safe. They're not really allowing you to be what you are, but you still allow yourself to be caught up in these situations because you feel this need to connect. Your work could be grounded and reveal your sensitivities, though. Like it might not be that you are this open book sensitive person. Example is Maya Angelou. She was very forthcoming about her own pain, her own experiences growing, you know, when she was younger, the things she had to endure and go through before she became Maya Angelou that we know, that we respect, with her, you know, with her literary skills. So that was an example. Her work was her being transparent. Her gift to us, her service is, I'm going to connect to people no matter who they are through, like, her Vesta and Pisces is very significant. Now, looking at her whole chart would be very helpful as well. Her chart is really fascinating. It helps because it really helps us see the experiences that she's had and what the impact is that she also had on the world. Now, Vesta in the houses, okay. Vesta in the houses. So again, when we look at houses, we always want to look at the area of life. That's where it makes it a little bit different than a sign. A sign is the qualities, the signature quality, the signature energy, but when the areas of life. So Vesta in the first house means you're using it for identity. Like, you're using your identity or who you are for service. Like, you might be a person, you're like, I know that I've experienced this, and so I'm going to use my experience to help you guys. I'm going to share my story with you, something like that. You get somebody that has maybe Mercury and Vesta in Gemini in the first house. Well, they might be like, you know, here's my story. I grew up in a tough area, and I'm going to use my identity to help you guys see how you can make it out. So something like that. I'm just making that up. The second house, Vesta, this values and money are used to provide service. You might actually give to other people. You set up foundations. Maybe you donate. You set up organizations. You set up charities or something of that nature. If you have third house Vesta, it's the spirit of learning and information. You are grounded in the work of learning, of allowing yourself to also constantly be curious and using that in order to foster the minds of other people. You give back in some way when it comes to the idea of formation of others. The fourth would be centered on giving to home and family, right? So here there is some understanding of needing to connect or finding your family, like finding who you view as family. Because I know there's some people who have strained relationship with their family, but it can mean there are people who have made their own family, right? Or people who have people around them, like, yeah, that's my family, my friends are my family. Because, you know, you can have a person who has those types of experiences, because they might say, my friends are my family because my family is in another country, or I don't talk to my family anymore. Like, you can have people where your Vesta, though, is you're centered on making things feel like home for other people. You help the emotional foundation of others through that through that placement. The fifth would be Vestas invested in your talents and providing joy. What you do, who you are, somehow is a service or gives to other people. Your dedication to the craft, maybe other people just noticed it. The sixth is service oriented, as we know. Sixth house is associated with Virgo, Mercury, organizing endeavors. This is the very, very service oriented in terms of charity, working in fields that require you to in some way be helping or be philanthropic or something like that. If Vesta's in your seventh house, it's you show and you're devoted to partnership and providing support. There's a theme around support. There's a theme around being devoted to the collaboration process. You could, even in your work, like you could see a person who maybe they don't even have any heavy seventh house placements, but they invested there and their life's work is bringing companies together, mediating between two people, something like that. You have someone who mediates between couples getting divorced. I don't know. And you might see that through Vesta, maybe in Capricorn, the seventh house. Eighth is groundwork for transformation. If your Vesta is there, there's a layer there of needing to help other people evolve, or through your commitment to evolving, it in some way is impacting those around you, or in some way your growth, it indirectly can be a way in which you help others, but you drive into this. It's something that you drive into and that you really use to really manifest different parts of your life in order to really, bring yourself to a certain level of awareness. Ninth would be work is around experience and driving knowledge. You're dedicated to knowledge. You put a lot of effort into working on your, understanding things in a way beyond what you were taught or told. And with Vesta being there, I think it gives another layer to understanding your own place within the world when it comes to your own belief systems and your own opinions. So you're dedicated. You show a lot of effort in that area. 10th would be opportunities surrounding career and goals. What you do helps maybe other people with their career, with their goals. An example here is Steven Spielberg has Vesta in the 10th house. And think about, because of all of his work and because of how famous he is, there's definitely been people who have but people that he's helped through this affiliation with him or through his career in some way assisted other people. I believe his Vesta is also in Pisces, if I'm not mistaken. So that's just an example of what that could look like. Vesta gives what you're willing to give into, and when we give into something, sometimes it does just affect us, but sometimes it affects other people as well. Because it is about this idea of I'm doing this to confine something to its best point, Virgo, and I'm doing something to also be committed to it, Scorpio. The 11th house would be society, breaking norms, renewed thoughts. A person who's invested in that work. And an example of that is Madonna has Vesta in the 11th house. And if you think about when Madonna first came on the scene in the 80s, she redefined, I wouldn't say she was the only one ever, but she redefined. There was a time where people thought she was too racy. They thought she was too provocative, but she really embodied female sexuality through her music and was unapologetic about that. And so that really went against what a lot of people would want a female pop star at the time to be doing. The 12th gives you give into spirituality, creativity, or sensitivity. Vesta there means there is literally a calling that you have in order to really provide some sense. It's just, it's something that you're willing to do. Think about Vesta. You're willing to do this. It's not sun aspect. It's different than things that are personal planets. Vesta is it's an additive. It's an extra part of you, of this is what you're willing to do, what you find that you're you stay more committed when it comes to these areas, for whether it's a sign or a house. And again, the whole chart is the most important part, but these asteroids just help us understand another layer to ourselves.